The lake was quiet, no birds, no wind, just the sound of water touching the wooden boat. Captain Elias Rowe sat alone, rowing through the morning mist. He had seen war, he had seen death. But what he saw last night still shook his heart. 3 days ago, he had come to this lake to hide from the world, from the Federation, and mostly from himself. The war between Earth and the alien beasts of the Arashi clans had ended in chaos. Humans called them werewolves, though they were more than just monsters. They were fast, smart, and beautiful in a wild, dangerous way. Elias had lost his squad. He didn't want medals. He didn't want revenge. He wanted silence. But the silence didn't last. On the second night, he saw something. He had just tied his boat near the dock when he heard something move in the dark, a shadow on the shore. He grabbed his flashlight, pointed it toward the woods, and there just for a second stood a tall, white-furred girl. Her eyes glowed pale blue. Her body was covered in soft fur like moonlight, and her long white hair fell over her shoulders. She had ears like a wolf, and a long tail curled behind her legs. She stared at him. UNMOVING. Then, just like smoke, she disappeared. He thought it was a dream, a trick from his tired mind. But the next night, she followed his boat. She didn't speak. She didn't come closer. She just stood at the far edge of the lake, walking silently along the shore, matching the slow rhythm of his rowing. Now, on the third morning, Elias rowed again, watching the fog. He didn't believe in ghosts. But whatever she wasn't human, and she wasn't trying to hurt him. That scared him more. He rowed toward the center of the lake where the water turned darker. He stopped and listened. No sound. But his skin tingled, like someone was watching. Slowly, he turned his head, and there she was, standing on the back of the boat. Elias didn't move, didn't even blink. The girl was silent, her eyes fixed on him. Her body looked human, but not quite. Her claws were sharp, her legs powerful, and yet she didn't look angry. She looked sad, lost. "Who are you?" he asked softly. She tilted her head but didn't reply. The mist curled around her like a blanket. Her fur was clean, almost glowing. Not a wild beast, not a warrior. Something else. She stepped closer. Elias gripped the oar tight, but he didn't raise it. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the war felt far away. "You were there, weren't you?" he said. "At Varka's Ridge. You saw what they did." Still no answer. But her ears twitched, and her tail dropped slightly. "A sign of sorrow? Fear? I didn't want to fight," he whispered. "But they made us kill your kind, burn your villages." A soft sound escaped her throat. Not a growl, not a word, a low hum. She knelt in the boat, still watching him. Boat rocked gently. Elias wanted to ask more. Why was she here? Why didn't she run? What did she want? But before he could speak again, her eyes widened. Her nose lifted. She smelled something. A flash of panic hit her face. Then, without warning, she jumped, leaping over the side of the boat, vanishing beneath the water. "Wait!" Elias shouted, crawling toward the edge. The lake was still. Only ripples remained. She was gone. He sat back, breath heavy, heart racing. His hands trembled. Why did she run? What scared her? He turned. On the distant shore, a black transport ship had landed. Federation markings. Soldiers. They were here, but not for him. They were hunting her. Elias's mind raced. Why would the Federation be chasing a lone alien girl? The war was over. Peace had been signed. Unless. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a secret, a living secret. Suddenly, the war didn't feel over at all. He stared at the lake. She's not just following me, he said aloud. She's hiding. And I'm the only one who saw her. Elias Rowe couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his small wooden cabin, staring at the cold metal mug in his hands. The fire crackled quietly behind him, but he felt no warmth. His mind kept replaying what happened on the boat, the look in her eyes, the way she knelt, the way she leapt into the lake and vanished. And then the black transport ship, soldiers, Federation. Watching the lake from the trees, he knew what he saw. That girl wasn't just wild. She wasn't like the other Arashi warriors. She was different. She had no armor, no weapons, no anger in her eyes, just fear and sadness. The next morning, Elias did something he hadn't done in years. He cleaned his old scope and checked the batteries. Then he waited. From inside the cabin, he watched the lake. He saw the birds return. A small fish jumped near the reeds. Hours passed. The soldiers didn't come back. The black ship was gone. Maybe it was just patrol, but something told him it wasn't. By late afternoon, Elias got back into the boat. He didn't bring his gun. Just a bag of food, a flashlight, and an old blanket. He rowed toward the middle of the lake again, this time slower. Watching the trees. Nothing moved. No signs of her. Maybe she's gone, he said quietly to himself. But even as he spoke the words, he didn't believe them. He reached the same spot where she appeared before. The air was still. The lake was calm. Then, a soft splash. Behind him. He turned. She was there, soaking wet, breathing fast, white fur dripping with lake water. Standing again at the edge of his boat, watching him, silent and tense. But she didn't move forward. This time, Elias didn't speak. He slowly unzipped a small bag and took out a wrapped piece of dried fruit. He placed it gently near the edge of the seat, then backed away. She tilted her head. Her nose twitched, still silent. After a long pause, she took one slow step forward, then another. Elias watched as she lowered her hand more, like a clawed paw, and picked up the food. She sniffed it, licked it once, then ate it. She looked at him again, then knelt the same way she had before. This time, she didn't seem scared. She was calm. Watching his every movement, Elias took out the blanket. He placed it down across the seat, trying to show he meant no harm. To his surprise, she leaned forward and sniffed the blanket, then sat on it. Her eyes didn't blink. Her ears twitched at every sound. But she didn't run. Minutes passed. Neither spoke. Then Elias said quietly, "I know you understand me. You're not just an animal." She didn't react, but after a moment, she reached toward the seat, touched the wood, and tapped twice. A signal? He looked at her carefully. "Do you want to stay hidden?" She didn't speak, but her tail moved slowly, curling around her legs. Her eyes lowered, like she understood, like she was tired of running. "Are they after you?" No response, but her ears flattened. That was answer enough. He reached into his bag again, pulled out a small square device, a locator beacon. It blinked red, then blue. "They tracked me here," he said. "Not you." She looked at the device. Then her claws came out. She slashed it in one fast move, and the blinking light went dead. He didn't stop her. "You've done this before," he whispered. She met his eyes. For the first time, he saw something deeper in her stare. Not just fear. Survival. Intelligence. Memories. Before he could ask anything else, the boat shifted. Her ears perked. Something was coming. She jumped again into the water, vanishing like before. Elias turned sharply. In the trees, far on the shore, a lens flashed in the sunlight. Someone was watching. Not just soldiers. Hunters. He slowly turned the boat back toward the dock. But in his mind, one truth was clear. She wasn't the monster. The real monsters were coming, and they didn't care who they hurt. Elias sat on the dock staring at the lake. The air was cold, and the fog felt heavier today. His boat was tied loosely, ready to move at any moment. But he didn't row out. He was waiting. Last night had changed everything. The way she looked at the beacon, the way she destroyed it, the flash from the woods. Whoever was out there wasn't from the Federation. The uniforms were wrong. The gear was too sharp, too quiet. Private hunters. Someone had put a price on her head, and Elias didn't know why. He checked his cabin. Nothing had been touched. But he found tracks outside, light, careful steps. Not hers. Human boots. At least 2 people had walked around his cabin during the night, then disappeared back into the trees. He wasn't safe anymore. That meant she wasn't either. Elias packed quickly rations, medkit, binoculars, a clean change of clothes, and his long knife. No weapons with loud fire. If they were being hunted, silence was survival. By afternoon, the fog began to shift. Wind moved through the trees, and the surface of the lake rippled. He untied the boat and stepped in, rowing slowly into the open water. He didn't call out to her. He just waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The lake was too still. The trees too quiet. Then a splash. She climbed into the boat, this time from the side, quick and silent. She was breathing hard, her fur soaked again. A faint cut ran across her shoulder. Her tail was curled tightly around her body. Elias moved forward, careful not to make sudden moves. "You're hurt," he said softly. She didn't answer. But she didn't run either. He opened the medkit. She watched his hands closely. When he reached for the cleaner, she growled low and sharp. "I won't touch you," Elias said. "Here." He placed the cloth and bandages on the seat beside her. She looked at them, then him, then slowly picked up the cloth and pressed it against her wound. "You're not just hiding," Elias whispered. "You're escaping." She looked up. Her eyes locked with his. This time, she spoke, not in words, just one sound, a name, Riva. Her voice was soft, dry, like wind over broken rocks. It didn't sound like human speech, but it carried weight. Meaning. Elias repeated it. "Riva." She nodded slightly. He smiled faintly. "I'm Elias." Another pause. Then she reached into the fur around her waist, pulling out a small, glowing crystal, dim, cracked, but still warm. She held it out carefully, offering it to him. Elias took it gently. As soon as he touched it, the crystal lit up briefly, showing a flicker of light, like a memory. A younger version of Riva, standing in a crowd of tall Arashi warriors. A peaceful place. A home. Then screams. Fire. Explosions. Riva running. The image faded. Elias stared at her. "They burned your village." Riva looked down. "I was there," Elias whispered. "Not on your planet, but I saw what they did to others. Not all soldiers followed orders, some came just to destroy." She didn't need to speak. He saw the truth in her eyes. He looked around. The lake. The mist was clearing. The shadows were moving again. "We need to leave," he said. "They're getting closer." She hesitated, then nodded once. For the first time, she didn't vanish. She stayed. As Elias turned the boat toward the deeper edge of the lake, he saw movement again. 2 dark shapes in the trees. One of them holding a scanner. Too late to hide. Elias rowed harder. Riva crouched low. Her eyes glowing now, sharp and wild. She wasn't just running anymore. She was preparing to fight. Elias didn't speak as he rowed. His arms burned with effort. But he didn't stop. The trees along the shore blurred as he pushed the boat deeper into the lake's center. Riva sat low, her fur pressed flat from the water, her eyes locked on the fading shore. Behind them, a small boat slid out from the fog, black, silent. 2 men in armor sat inside, holding rifles across their legs. No Federation markings, no words. Just eyes like cold metal. Riva let out a soft growl. Elias reached into his bag and pulled out a flare gun, but didn't fire it. "They want you," he said to her, his voice low, "but they don't want the world to know it." Riva didn't answer, but her claws dug into the wood. "They'll follow us until they catch you or kill you," Elias added. She stared at the men coming closer. Then she stood up in the boat, slowly, carefully. She raised her hand and showed them the glowing crystal. Even from this distance, it lit up faintly in the fog. The hunters stopped. Then one raised his rifle. "No," Elias muttered, lifting the flare gun. Before he could fire, Riva moved. In one jump, she leapt into the water, disappearing below the surface. Elias shouted, "Riva!" The black boat turned sharply. The men aimed into the water. One fired. The shot echoed across the lake. Ripples spread. Then silence. Nothing surfaced. "Damn it," Elias hissed. He raised the flare gun and fired straight into the sky. A red flare burst through the mist. Screaming into the clouds. The hunters turned their boat toward him. They were fast. Elias grabbed the oars and rowed with everything he had. The red flare had only one purpose: now bring help. But help might not come in time. He reached the far shore, dragging the boat up onto the rocks. Behind him, the black boat was closing in. But they were slower now, cautious. Maybe they thought Riva was still nearby. She wasn't dead. He knew it. He ran into the forest, keeping low. He moved fast, weaving through trees, branches cutting his face. He stopped only once to check behind him. The hunters weren't following. Not yet. He reached a hidden cave near the lake's edge, one he had found months ago while fishing. Inside was dry ground, old crates, and a tiny opening toward the back. He ducked inside and waited. Minutes passed. Then, water dripped. From the cave's rear, Riva crawled through the opening. Her fur was soaked, but her eyes were sharp. She wasn't wounded. "You're alive," Elias breathed. She collapsed beside him, breathing hard. Her hands trembled. He gave her water. She drank slowly, eyes never leaving the entrance. "We can't stay here long," Elias said. "They'll search the whole shoreline." Riva leaned back against the cave wall. She pulled something from the small pouch at her side, a round metal disc about the size of a coin. She pressed it. A hologram lit up in the air between them. It showed blueprints. A lab, a human facility, hidden deep in the forest mountains. "What is this?" Elias asked. Riva pointed to a symbol on the map. He recognized it. "Federation Science Branch." "You escaped from there?" he asked. She nodded. "That's why they were hunting her. She wasn't just some survivor of the war. She had escaped from a lab, a human lab." Elias stared at the hologram. "You weren't just a soldier," he said. "You were their test subject." Riva didn't answer, but her silence was enough. "They're not hunting you because of the war," he added. "They're hunting you because you know something." He looked at her again. This time, not with fear, but with understanding. "You came to me because I wasn't one of them," he whispered. "You needed someone who would listen." Riva closed the hologram. The light faded. Then, for the first time, she leaned against him. Her body was cold, her breathing slow, but she didn't move away. She trusted him. Outside, the wind howled. A storm was coming. Inside the cave, 2 hunted souls waited, one human, one alien, but no longer alone. The storm hit just after nightfall. Rain poured like a waterfall, hammering the trees above the cave. Lightning cracked across the sky, shaking the ground. Elias sat at the edge of the cave, eyes scanning the forest. Riva sat behind him, wrapped in the dry blanket he had brought from the boat. Her white fur was still damp, her breathing steady now. The fire between them was small. They didn't dare make it brighter. Not with the hunters still nearby. Elias turned toward her. "We can't," Stay here. They'll keep looking until they find this cave. Riva looked up. Her eyes glowed faint blue in the dark. She understood. He pulled out the hologram disc she had shown him earlier and studied the map again. The facility was real. He recognized the ridgelines and old military paths. It was deep in the mountain forest, at least a full day's hike. But it was their only lead. If we reach this place, Elias said, we might find out why they took you. Maybe we can find something to stop them. Riva nodded. She rose slowly, still weak from the swim and the wound on her shoulder. Elias helped her stand. Her claws gently touched his arm, not in warning but in trust. They packed their gear in silence. By dawn, they left the cave and moved through the forest. Elias walked first, keeping low, checking every path. Riva followed quietly, almost like a shadow. Even wounded, she was faster than him, lighter on her feet. Once, they passed an old patrol drone, crashed into a tree and covered in moss. Riva paused beside it, sniffed the metal, and then tapped her claw twice on its shell. What is it? Elias asked. She didn't answer, but her tail twitched. They kept moving. By afternoon, the forest changed. The trees grew thicker, the paths steeper. Elias stopped to drink from a stream. As he filled the bottle, he noticed Riva staring into the water. Her reflection stared back, half human, half wolf. With eyes full of pain, she touched her own face. Elias watched in silence. She wasn't looking at the water. She was looking at who she used to be. I don't think you're a monster, he said gently. Riva turned, surprised. Then her ears lowered slightly, as if she didn't believe him, but she didn't walk away. They climbed higher. By evening, they reached an old metal gate, half buried under vines and dirt. A faded symbol was still visible. Federation Science Command. This is it, Elias whispered. Riva stepped forward and scratched at the gate's rusted panel. A small sensor lit up and scanned her claw. The gate clicked. Unlocked. Double quote, you still have access, Elias said, amazed. She looked back at him, then pushed the gate open. Inside was darkness. Metal walls covered in dust. Broken lights. Dead silence. They moved together, deeper into the underground halls. Old rooms stood empty, labs, cages, glass chambers. Elias felt his stomach twist. This was no science center. It was a prison. He found an old datapad on a broken desk. It flickered weakly, still running on backup power. He opened the last file. Subject number 47, Hirashi female. Project, hybrid control. Status, incomplete. Escape recorded. Termination order issued. He turned to Riva. You were a test, he whispered. They tried to turn you into a weapon, a hybrid they could control. Riva looked at the broken chambers. Then she pointed at one. Its glass still cracked. Blood inside dried and dark. Her chamber. She had escaped that place. And now they wanted her dead. Not because of what she did, but because she survived. Elias stepped closer to her. You don't need to run anymore, he said. We end it here. Suddenly, lights above them flickered. Outside the door, a sound echoed. Metal boots. Voices. They had been followed. Riva turned toward Elias, her claws out. He pulled out his long knife. We hold them off, he said. Together. The footsteps grew louder. Elias moved fast, turning over old desks and shelves, building a barricade across the main hallway. Riva stood beside him, breathing slow and deep. Her wound was nearly healed now. Her body had changed, stronger, more focused. The fear in her eyes was gone. She was ready. Elias crouched behind the cover, his long knife in one hand, flashlight in the other. They want the crystal, he said, and you. Riva placed the glowing crystal on the ground between them. The light inside it pulsed. Stronger now, brighter, almost alive. I think it's more than a memory, Elias said. I think it's proof, evidence of what they did here. Riva nodded. The door at the end of the hallway slammed open. 3 men in black armor stormed in. No symbols, no names. Just guns raised and helmets cold like machines. Stand down. One shouted, "Return the subject," Riva growled low. Her eyes flashed bright blue. "She's not your subject," Elias said. The soldiers opened fire. Bullets tore through the lab walls. Sparks flew. Elias ducked. Riva leapt into the air faster than any human, claws slashing across one of the attackers. The man fell before he could scream. Elias charged forward, knocking a second soldier down. His blade slid under the man's arm, cutting deep. Riva moved like a ghost, slashing, twisting, dodging every shot. But the last soldier grabbed the crystal. "No!" Elias shouted. Riva lunged, but he fired a stun round. It hit her chest. She dropped with a cry. Elias tackled the man before he could run. They rolled across the floor, fighting over the glowing crystal. The soldier punched hard once, twice. Elias fell back, blood on his lips. The man raised his weapon again, but before he could fire, Riva rose behind him. Her eyes were blazing. She didn't growl. She didn't roar. She moved in silence, fast and final. Her claws struck once. The man dropped. It was over. Elias sat on the floor, breathing hard. Riva crouched beside him, her hand touching his arm. "You saved me," he whispered. She shook her head slowly, then picked up the crystal and handed it to him. Elias looked at it. Inside, the pulsing light changed, showing new images. Video. Files, test logs. Audio records. Proof. He stared at Riva. "We send this out, to the Federation, to the press, the whole galaxy." She nodded once. They left the lab behind. Fire spread through the facility after they set charges in the fuel room. The metal walls collapsed behind them. By dawn, the 2 of them were back on the boat. The lake was calm again. The fog had lifted. Riva sat beside Elias now, not hiding, not vanishing. She looked up at the sky as birds flew overhead. He looked at her. Her fur glowed in the sunlight. Her eyes were peaceful for the first time. "You're free now," he said. She turned to him. Then, softly, she touched her hand to his chest. Her fingers gently tapped once, then again. A sound left her lips. "Home." Elias didn't move. He just nodded. And for the first time since the war began, he smiled. The boat drifted quietly over the water, carrying a soldier and a survivor toward a world that, finally, might change, together.